From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One more corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hutchavandi
And Corey Clark.
Wake up! What is up, everybody? It is Wake Up Warchant. It is presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Tallahassee, Florida. Coming up on today's show, we got a recruiting wrap-up from Michael Langston, courtesy of his appearance on the Sunday Smash. The Zaxby's Indescribably Good Player of the Week. What will the theme be? I don't know. And just the general malaise of July and expansion talk. Wake Up Warchant presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill in Tallahassee, Florida. CPTallybar.com. That's the website, but all the good stuff is inside of Corner Pocket, which is right off Appalachia Parkway in Tallahassee. Wings, darts, pool, fellowship, friendship, trivia, bingo. What do you want? What do you want? What will make you happy, listener? It's there at the Corner Pocket. Right, Corey?
Amen, brother. Amen. It was jam-packed on Saturday night, man, for the live music. Couldn't even get a table there.
Oh, what?
For a little bit. Yeah, we got there like not even. You would think I'd have a table on the stage if I wanted it, but no, no table. But we found one eventually and hung out and had a good time as we're wont to do. The waitresses are all real nice, and they are all waitresses. You know, you might roll into some sports bars or restaurants or establishments, and they're here or there. Not a Corner Pocket, buddy. They are all waitresses. So just throwing that out there if that means anything to you at all.
CPTallybar.com. Check it out. You can place your order online. It's great. Convenience. It's all there for you at your fingertips.
And Bill, as we always said with DeLuna too, with our Lamoxon friend, who are always friends of the program. Bill is a Florida State grad too.
Okay.
Actually, I was talking with one of his old frat buddies. That they drove to, where did they drive to? They drove to the Michigan games.
Nice.
When they went to school, like the '86 Michigan game. They both drove to New Orleans for the Dion game where he intercepted Auburn in the Sugar Bowl. So they're right there at the start of the dynasty. So Bill's a tried and true Seminole.
Nice. Wasn't Bobby wearing a shirt and tie in the game against Auburn, the bowl game?
No, that was the Syracuse game up in that dome in '89.
Okay.
Something about he had to get on the plane immediately. I don't. They didn't have time to change. I never quite got the story right. It's like it can't be that hard. Because he had to do the show, the Bobby. I can't remember, but yeah, he was wearing a suit and tie because he had to be on the plane right after the game or something.
All right, as we are to do on this show, speculate, talk about things that are on the Florida State fans' radar.
And don't forget too, Aslan. You might not know this, but by the time people hear this, the time some people hear this, yeah. I think we're going to have our final five, the top five of the Warchant Top 40.
Ooh.
I'm supposed to be writing that as soon as I'm done talking to you, buddy.
All right, I guess let's go to that then. That's legit. That's legit stuff. So let's go to it. I've got your top five. I've got my top five. Let us dance, shall we? So we're doing that. We're going to unleash the whole top five, just like that, huh?
Yeah. I
was telling Ira, I'm like, we should do one by one when we get to the top five. Just do one by one, stretch it out a little bit longer, but we'll give the people what they want. Mm-hmm. We start inside the trenches. I'm going with Robert Cooper. You're going with Fabian Lovett. So
there you go.
All right. Why do you like Fabian more than Robert? You think is he going to play more reps than Robert?
And I think he's a better pass rusher, which I think is in this day and age, that's a little bit. I mean, I know it all starts in the trenches. It all starts with stopping the run, but I don't know, man. You need to pressure the quarterback. We've seen what defenses look like when you can't pressure the quarterback at all. It's not pretty. And I just think Fabian Lovett is a little bit better pass rusher than Cooper. And I think when he's healthy, he's good, man. Like good. And you hope he has the kind of year. I don't think he's as talented as Marvin Wilson, but he can certainly have a better final year than Marvin Wilson did. That's not asking a lot, is it? That's not a big barrier to overcome. But I think he has a chance to have if he has a good season, I think he could play at like Marvin Wilson junior level. You know what I mean? Like his junior season. And that's a wrecking ball, man. He is a tough dude to handle. And he just kept getting better last year. So I just think he's got to be one, in my opinion, one of the best interior linemen in the conference.
By the way, for listeners on YouTube, please hit the thumbs up, or you maybe wait another few minutes so we can earn it. Apple folks, 5-star rating and review. That'd be great. Subscribe to the pod. Download it every day. 4, Micah Pittman for Corey Clark, Omarion Cooper for Aslan Hutchavandi. Yeah, you need, I guess, you need a big-time playmaker, and you need somebody to prevent big plays. I do get a little bit jittery that I've put Omarion so high up. Again, listen, a lot of these are the 40 most impactful players on this coming season. And listen, we've experienced 4 straight losing seasons in a row, everybody. And last one, we had a dominant pass rusher, and we still had a losing season. The year before that, we had an elite cover corner, and we still went below 500. So just how much of an impact do those guys really make, huh? But I don't know, man. He was so consistent. Again, man, Omarion Cooper, to me, was like spring MVP. To me, he was the most consistent performer day in and day out. Like, he wasn't picking off passes every day, but man, passes weren't being completed in his direction. And when they did throw in his direction, balls were getting batted, and Akeem Dent was picking it off and cleaning things up. So I don't know, maybe everything else is just a little bit stronger around him, and we will see a top 40 impactful player, like a top 5 corner, what they actually can really wield and unleash for a defense. I got Omarion Cooper 4. You got Micah Pittman 4. I like that one too.
Yeah, but I think Cooper's a good pick, man. I think a lot of it has to do. I think he's high on most everybody's list, like really high. And I think a lot of it had to do with the way he finished up last season, because you saw what that did to the defense. Just his presence on the field, and then what it did to the rest of the defense. I think you can't overstate what he meant to it. I'm not going to go ahead and say he's a lockdown, shutdown corner quite yet. You know what I mean? But it certainly looked like that in the spring, didn't it?
Yes.
It looked like he was the next big thing. Now we'll see what he does in a game. I remember a preseason, maybe Willie's first year, where Levante Taylor looked like Dion. Like, he was unbelievable in the preseason practice. Not just spring, but like preseason. When we watched him, he dominated everything we saw. And then he goes out and gives up like a touchdown or 2 touchdowns in the opener against Virginia Tech, and had a really kind of bad season.
Hurt his back, Corey.
After that.
He fractured his back, man. He had a broken back. Come on, man.
So I don't want people to think that that I'm calling this guy to be the next Jalen or anything. But he was really, Aslan's right. He was really good in the spring, on top of being so impressive as a freshman. So and then when you throw into the mix what position he plays and how impactful that can be, when you feel good on the edge with one of your corners, maybe you can shade some secondary help to the other side. If you don't feel maybe as good about that corner, you can take this guy and put him on the team's best receiver. Now, he's not going to shut out great receivers. It's just like basketball. You don't shut out the great scorers. They're going to get theirs, but he'll make them earn it. And I just think that's to have a all-conference type corner is a really, really big deal. And I think Omarion Cooper is that guy. I think he's proven. He hasn't proven it necessarily on all the Saturdays that he's played yet, or that Florida State has played since he's been here. But man, he was really good in the spring, and going on top of how good he looked in the fall, it makes you think, okay, what is his ceiling? His ceiling might be, maybe one of the best corners in the country by the time he leaves here, or by the time at the end of the season. And then what does that mean for a defense? So yeah, man, I think most of us have him pretty high.
Yeah, and you want to talk about him being young. I mean, as a freshman last year, on the Kenny Dillingham scale of youth, where Jordan Travis is still young, man, Omarion Cooper's an infant. Like, he didn't even go through preseason practice. Like, your August practices, he wasn't even available for that. So That's why we saw him kind of blossom later on the season, because he had to get his legs underneath him. And then from that little sort of limited sample size, we saw how well he played, and he carried into the spring. So I'll be bullish on him. I don't think there's any reason not to. Right. You've got Omarion at 3. You've got Duke Cooper 3 on your list. You have Micah again at 4. I've got Jamie Robinson at 3. You've got Jamie at 2. I've got Micah at 2. I guess let's dive a little further into Micah and Jamie Robinson. You want to start off with Jamie, Corey?
Yeah, I mean, I just think Jamie, his import to the team is just something that you can't overvalue. What having a guy like that back there, he's a good safety. He's a great communicator. I think he's a leader. He's got that dog in him, Aslan, that I like. No. He's a really good tackler, a sure tackler. He's a guy that stabilizes things back there. You're not going to have a dude with his, looking around, not knowing who's supposed to be where he's supposed to be. He's going to help other people out. He's not going, again, when they moved him to safety, all of a sudden, weirdly, you didn't see dudes just running free in the middle of the field anymore. Yeah. They weren't just giving up wide open 70-yard passes anymore. Just knowing where you're supposed to be is such a big deal. When you're playing that position, not giving up free layups for touchdowns. And then on top of that, he's good at what he does. He's not just where he's supposed to be. He goes and makes plays. Him coming back was a huge boost for this team. If you guys don't remember, I think he finished his season with 18 tackles against Florida, something crazy like that.
Sounds right.
Just a competitor. And I think that bleeds all over the defense. Like when your best player, one of your best players is that kind of competitor, I just think that DNA gets all over the team. I think it just gets all
OJ over here, man. Blood and DNA. How about just rubs off on guys? How about that?
Yeah.
Just gets rub
Somebody explain how, who was it? Was it Ron Goldman's blood ended up in OJ's house and he still got off? I mean, what in the world? Anyway, that was the early stages of DNA, Aslan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They didn't. I don't think the jury quite understood what they were hearing when they said it was like a 1 in 7 billion chance. But whatever, man. Whatever.
If he did it, though. But if he did it. If he did it. What a great book that would. I wish that would have gone to print. That book that he agreed to write about if he had killed. Did you see that 6-part series on him? By the way, on FX, no, or the one on ESPN.
I'm sorry. I meant the documentary, the ESPN 30 for 30, but it was like 6 hours, I think.
It was, I remember tuning in the middle of one of the episodes. I'm like, how does this have anything to do with O.J. Simpson? It was telling a much bigger picture that I just wasn't ready to chew on.
But I think that picture was setting the stage for why African Americans were so excited when he got off. It set the whole stage of how it became a racial. It went right down racial divide, and if you guys didn't live through that, it really kind of did, where it became, African Americans were rooting for him to get off. White people were devastated when he got convicted. But there was so it just talked about how race played such an important factor in that in L.A. at that time. Right. It was on the heels of Rodney King. It was the heels on that girl getting shot in the head by the Korean store owner. That was just nuts. Listen to this, folks, and then we'll get back to Florida State. She goes in there to try to buy a drink. Maybe she's trying to steal it. It doesn't matter. The store owner thinks that she's trying to steal it. So they get into an altercation where the store owner's behind the glass. They're wrestling with each other for the drink or for the purse, something like that. Anyway, the girl yanks her purse away or her backpack away, starts walking out of the store. The Korean store, and I'm just saying Korean because, again, that became right down racial divides. The Korean store owner, as she's walking out the door, takes a gun and shoots her in the back of the head and kills her. She's walking out of the store, having not done anything but defended herself when the Korean kind of attacked her. But anyway, she gets convicted of murder, rightly, and then the judge overrules the conviction and gives her probation. Oh. That happened like 6 months before Rodney King. So anyway, it was a tinderbox, and that's why OJ, and then OJ came, 2 years after that? 3 years after that. 93. But the craziest part of that whole documentary, and then we'll get back to Florida State, is one of his really good friends, like maybe a year, 2 years after OJ's out of prison. And this guy was great. They interviewed him a lot. He said they've been smoking weed and they're drinking Heinekens and they're in the back of in OJ's porch. And he's like, OJ, what happened, man? And I don't know the guy's name. I'm just going to say Keith. OJ said, Keith, man, if she doesn't answer the door with a knife, she'd still be alive. Oh. That's his best friend on record saying what OJ told him about why Nicole and Ron Goldman got killed. That if she hadn't answered the door with a knife, she would still be alive. So anyway, now what were you at? Let's back to Micah Pittman. Sorry.
Oh, Jamie Robinson. Yes, 18 tackles or so against Florida. I want to talk about this in a later point in the show, but I guess I'll go to it now with maybe Jamie is that guy. I saw on like Saturday, I think, that Ed Reed was for some reason trending on Twitter, and I don't know why. And apparently there was some sort of clip pulled out from some sort of TED Talk he did, or I don't know what.
I think it was an interview with Joe Buck.
Okay.
Remember when Joe Buck had that show on HBO for half a second?
Yeah. Artie Lang, what friends like him, who needs enemies?
Right.
And I saw this, and I guess everybody was retweeting. A lot of these high school football coaches I still follow retweeted it because there was a good message to it. I didn't listen to it, sorry. I just look at the headlines a lot of times.
Do you want me to tell you what it was about?
Does
it matter?
Yeah, well, yeah, sure, go ahead. Real quick, yeah. Go ahead.
He was talking about when he was with the Ravens, and they had these volunteer firemen that were also the custodians in the locker room. And he said it used to drive him crazy when the guys in that locker room, when they were done with practice, would just cut up their tape, drink their sodas, drink their water. They're probably drinking a lot of sodas in a professional locker room. Powerades or whatever, and just throw all their trash on the floor, all their socks on the floor, all their tape on the floor. And he's like, the trash can's right there. It's 10 feet away. And you're going to make this volunteer fireman, this retired fireman who's trying to make money, you're better than him. So you're just going to throw your stuff on the floor and make them go clean it up because that's how much you care about it. And he goes, the little things matter. The little things like that matter. And he said he went and talked to the whole team about it. About he's like, so I'm out there. He goes, I'm a Hall of Famer. I'm a Pro Bowler. And I'm cleaning up after these second stringers and throwing their stuff in the trash because I'm embarrassed. And so he said he had a meeting with the team and told them they're not doing that anymore. All the little things matter. Stuff like that matters. Having pride in yourself, being respectful of other people and their time and their jobs, all of it matters. And then that year they won the Super Bowl.
#culture.
Amen.
And I saw one tweet from this New Jersey, New York radio guy, and it was funny. He's like, the people I don't want to disappoint in my life. Number 1, Ed Reed. Number 2, my mom and dad. And
right.
I was just thinking, like, who is that guy on this team? And it's listen, whatever, we're a Florida State show. He's a chief of staff or whatever for Miami. Screw him. But, man, like Ed Reed, you got to respect Ed Reed. I mean, most people, I think you can respect Ed Reed. I think most people can respect Charlie Ward if they're a Miami or a Florida fan. Most Florida State fans can probably tip their cap to Danny Werfel. We can be adults at sometimes. But, like, when you have a guy like that, and there was that clip of him from the season when they filmed Florida State in 2001 when he's, like, imploring Miami that they're, he's like, hell no, ain't all right. Joaquin said dominate. We ain't dominating. It's like, chill out, man. You're going to win. You're going to win the national title too, Ed. But, like, you need one of those guys. And, we're losing so much of the heart and soul of college football, and I don't want to get too deep down that hole yet. But, man, like the romance of it still lives in me. Just a glimmer of it is still somewhere in the black abyss that is my heart. And, like, I wonder who that guy is. And you need one of those guys. Not necessarily, like, win a national title, but you need, like, that galvanizing guy. And I don't know if, like, Jermaine, I don't know how much of a role Jermaine tried to play in that way and how much it was him just leading by action. But, man, you can lead by action and also get down people's throats when it matters. And now that you talk about, kind of Jamie's, the way he communicates, just the way he plays on the field, I'm hoping maybe he's that guy. I mean, I can't think of anybody else that maybe has more bona fides to be able to pull it off than him, unless it is a guy like Robert Cooper, a guy like Fabian.
I think what's kind of cool about this team maybe, and again, they're not going to be Ed Reeds. No, they don't have an Ed Reed on this team. But as far as that mindset and that personality, I think you might have it at every level of the defense. I think Fabian Lovett can be that guy along with Cooper. I think he's got some of that in him. We've already talked about Jared Verse and what kind of personality he has. Then I think Kalen DeLoach was kind of turning into that at the end of the year. We'll see what Bethune does his first year, but I think he might have some of that in him. And then obviously you got Jamie Robinson. You've got – last year it was like, all right, who are the leaders on this team? And I don't even know who – maybe it ended up being Jermaine, but, he was a one-year rental. But now you've got guys that have been invested in the program that can be leaders. And I think, again, that's a culture-building thing. I think they do have guys that can be those kind of emotional leaders. I just do. I think they got a few of them. I think Fabian and Robert Cooper are good dudes for that. And then I think Jamie Robinson certainly, in my opinion, he's probably the leader, right? I think out of the guys I mentioned, he's the most surefire one, I think.
Yeah. I hope so. I hope so, too. I think.
Offense, though?
Yeah.
That's a different story.
Yeah. So let's go there.
I think there's a bunch of natural leaders on the defense.
Yeah.
I don't know about offense.
Yeah. All right, so Micah Pittman, you had him at 4, I have him at 2. I just think that, I don't know if he's going to play slot, if he's going to play, whatever, flanker, if he's going to play split end, what do you want to, X, Y, Z, whatever you want to call your receivers in this day and age. But, man, he should be a guy that you can look to on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8 to get open, man. He's a guy that you should be able to depend on and rely on. He's a guy that in limited action didn't make big explosive plays for Oregon, And for however inconsistent and up and down Jordan Travis plays, Jordan Travis is a little bit more polished off than Anthony Brown was for Oregon. I think the numbers kind of flesh out that way. And, speaking again to the Oregon publisher for the Ravels.com site that we had spoke to earlier in the year, doing these features on a lot of these transfers, talked about the fact that, there was so many, this was him, this is not Aslan saying, this is the guy from the Oregon site, watching them play last year and the years prior. There's so many times where Micah Pittman would be running wide open, and either the ball wouldn't get to him, or it would, they either wouldn't see him, or the ball would just be grossly underthrown or overthrown, and he couldn't get to it. I would hope that maybe he's a little bit more mature now. Not that he was immature or anything. I'm just saying, hopefully he's a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more developed in his game, and he'll be a little bit more, prepared for the role of being a number one wide receiver, because I think he is the most talented wide receiver this season. Maybe Malik McClain can be that guy. Maybe Johnny Wilson grows into it. Maybe Deuce Spann grows into it at some point. But this year when we're talking about it, I just think Micah Pittman's your number one wide receiver. He's better than anybody they've had out there, sans probably, Tamori and Terry back in 2019 when he was fully healthy. That's going to make an impact, man. That's one thing I think we can look at that will make a certain impact, is having a wide receiver that you can depend on and rely on to make big plays. So that's why I have him at 2. Not too far from you. You have him at 4. So.
Yeah, we all danced around. We were all right there with each other in this top 5. Typically, I think we're all pretty close with this top 5. You and I had the same top 5, just in different orders. Yeah, I had Pittman at 4, and certainly the highest wide receiver. Because of that, I think again he's got that personality that they haven't had a lot of dudes that are like, I'm going to get in the end zone here. You're not stopping me. Yeah. Or I'm going to get this first down. You're not stopping me. I'm making a play. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Greg Reed. Even though they play completely different. Greg Reed always wanted the ball and always wanted a chance to go make the play. Never fair caught anything because he thought he was the best player on the field and he was going to go make a play, either score a touchdown or make a huge play for his team. No, he gave up a few huge plays too. Now we all know the deal with Greg Reed, but he was a great punt returner and a pretty good cornerback. But he had that mindset, man. He just did. He thought he was the best player on the field. And again, that to play with that kind of confidence, I think Micah Pittman has some of that in him. And he's a playmaker. And you saw that in the spring game a little bit. We saw it a lot in the spring. He just goes and makes plays. Not the biggest, not the fastest, not the strongest. But he goes and snatches balls that are 50-50 over guys in better position to make the play. And when he gets to the 2-yard line and you're in front of him, he's either going to go around you or through you. But he wants to get in the end zone. He has to get in the end zone. He's one of those dudes, it seems like. And that's been in short supply around here for a good long while. Mm-hmm. And I just think, again, we talked about blood splatter in DNA back with Jamie Robinson. I think you can do the same thing there with Micah Pittman. I think you get the blood spatter marks. Is it spatter or splatter?
Oh, I would say splatter. I would say splatter. Yeah.
All right, yeah, that makes sense. But for some reason, blood spatter came out of my mouth, and that seemed all right too. But splatter,
spatter to cover with drops or spots of something. The verb, the noun, a spray or splash of something.
Is a spatter?
Is
so
spatter.
It is blood spatter. Yeah.
But then splatter is splashed with a sticky or viscous liquid. Which isn't blood, a little viscous, sticky?
Blood's viscous. It's got viscosity. Yeah. So, guys, again, that's tomato. You choose what you want. We'll talk about this forever. Scholars have been debating this forever. Blood spatter or blood splatter. But I think that Micah Pittman can have that similar effect on the offense. I think Pokey Wilson, Keyshawn Helton, Malik McClain, they have a dude that not only wants the ball every time, he's mad when he doesn't score a touchdown. He's mad when he doesn't make the great play. It's not like, oh, man, that would have been cool if I'd have caught that. He's furious with himself if he doesn't make a one-handed leaping, somersault catch because he expects himself to. And I just think that that can have such a big impact on a team to have a playmaker like that and a guy that can not just what he does, obviously attitude-wise, and maybe changes the mindset of the room. And I always come back to Jalen Ramsey and his effect on the 2015 defense. But also the fact that they just need a guy that can go make plays. They need a guy that they can throw a 6-yard pass to and he can turn it into 50. They just need guys that can beat man-to-man, one-on-one coverage. And he is that guy, by all accounts. But the way he looked this spring, he is that guy, and they have not had that guy, and you wonder what that can do for the whole offense when you have a dude at wide receiver that the other team has to account for. That hasn't been the case since Tamorrion Terry.
Yeah.
It just hasn't. They now have a guy, in my opinion, that other defenses will have to account for, and then how does that open things up for the rest of the team, the rest of the offense? I think that's how big an impact he can have.
And then number 1, Zane Herring.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Expecting big things out of him this year, right? Z-Dog, Z-Train.
Yeah. Jordan Travis, obviously, clearly. I mean, it just has to be, right? I mean, again, when we get to some of these picks, I think for me, 1 and 2, like if Florida State is going to fulfill the potential that we think they have, which is not vast, but, should be, again, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in that little, range. Micah Pittman's going to have a really good season, and Jordan Travis is going to have to be the guy that's going to get him the ball and keep this entire thing afloat. So, I mean, he's a quarterback of the team. I don't know how many other programs would do a list like this in their offseason and not have their quarterback number 1. And maybe some big –
especially a returning quarterback.
Yeah, maybe like Wisconsin, they'd be their running back. Maybe would be ahead of their quarterback. But otherwise, just Jordan Travis – I think hopefully he's figured out, if anything, that availability is the most important part of his contribution to this program, and he will make sure that he can figure out ways to treat his body right in the off days and the practices and pick his spots and make it through 12 weeks and, get us to a Belk Bowl. So, Jordan Travis, number 1.
Yep. I mean, that's a slam dunk. He's got to be. And again, the way he played at the end of the year, he threw for over 200 yards in each of the last 3 games. I think he totaled over 300 yards in each of the last 3 games. He had a win over Miami with the drive of his life to this point. He had a really nice performance at Boston College. Some stuff happened in the second half. And then Florida, he was good against Florida. And, he just didn't play for 3 drives. And that's why they lost the game. I think he might have run for 100 and thrown for 200 against Florida. He did stuff that you're like, wait, what? He did what? Because running for 100 yards as a quarterback and then throwing for 200, that's pretty remarkable to do. But they lost the game, so it wasn't really celebrated that much. And a lot of those yards came when they were down by 17 points in the fourth quarter. But he still had a nice game, I thought. He finished.
We were down by 17 in the fourth to them?
Yeah, I think they were down 24-7, and then scored 2 straight touchdowns.
He threw for 202, completing 62% of his passes, and he ripped off 17 runs for 102, 6-yard average. So, there you go. 300.
And probably got sacked. Probably it was more
4
like,
times. He got sacked 4 times.
So he probably ran 13 times for 130, if you take away the sack yardage. But that's what I'm saying. Like that's a good defense. Not a great defense. Florida wasn't very good last year, but it's a good defense. Miami had a decent defense. BC was okay. And Jordan Travis played well against them. Now he supposedly, we think, has more weapons. Mm-hmm. And he's better. He's going to continue to get better. Just think about what you saw in the fourth quarter against Florida compared to what you saw in the first quarter against Notre Dame out of that kid. And that was the growth he made in 1 year. Now, if he can continue that trend and get that, I don't know if he's going to make that kind of wild leap again, but if he can continue to improve, then you're talking about an all-ACC-ish caliber quarterback, perhaps. And that's a game changer. And he's going to have some weapons this year that he didn't have last year, so you like his chances of being that dude that totals 350 yards a game. 250, 280 passing, 70 throwing or running, whatever it be. He could be a 300 to 350 yard guy a game and account for 3 or 4 touchdowns a game. He has that ability, and he has that experience now. So that you can't put a price tag on experience either. He knows he can do it. He went and played at Clemson, not well, granted, but he's played in a close game at Death Valley. He's played in a close game in the Swamp. He played in a close game against Miami and beat them. He beat North Carolina on the road. He beat Boston College on the road. He was in an overtime, sort of in an overtime game with Notre Dame. Like, he's had all these moments now that should make him just so much more confident. He might have pretended he was confident last year, but you're not really confident until you know you can do it. Until you prove to yourself you can do it. And now he has proven to himself he can play at this level. quarterback's always really important, but it makes it doubly important at a place like Florida State right now in this time in the program history to have a quarterback that can go win you some games. Not just not lose you games, but actually go win you games. And I think Jordan Travis could be that guy this year. And if he is, he might be one of the most important players in the entire conference, not just on Florida State.
All right, well, that's our top 5. Again, Corey's top 5, Fabian Love at 5, Micah Pittman 4, Omarion Cooper 3, Jamie Robinson 2, Jordan Travis 1. I got Robert Cooper at 5, Omarion Cooper at 4, Jamie Robinson 3, Micah Pittman 2, Jordan Travis 1. To find out our entire staff's composite selections, go over to warchant.com, the ultimate Seminole sports source. Check it out. Gene Williams, Irish O'Fell, Jeff Cameron, Tom Lang, Austin R. Cox, all involved in this. It was fun, everybody. Let us know what you guys think about our picks. Comment, go on the board, post a comment, and all that kind of stuff. And we'll kick it around with you on the website.
The clutch shot, the biggest hits. It's time for the Zaxby's Indescribably Good
Player of the week.
The man has spoken. Let us respond in kind. Corey, it is the Zaxby's Indescribably Good Player of the Week as we have this out for everybody. It's now 47 days on Monday. It's 47 days away until Florida State's 2022 opener against Duquesne here in Tallahassee. So, Corey, what's the best performance all time by somebody who wore a jersey in the 40s for Florida State? Just give us something,
JD
Corey.
JD Drew. I know, buddy. You're really stretching. JD Drew was so close, but he wore number 39.
Oh.
So sorry, JD, you didn't make the list. But we're sticking with football. I think I mentioned this one before, but it's so good I'm going to keep bringing it back. Kirk Carruthers, friend of Warchant, was on one of our War Chats back 2 years ago or whatever it was. For this game, the Miami game in 1989, Miami ended up winning the national championship anyway, but they lost the state championship because Florida State beat them. And they beat them because of Kirk Carruthers. Kirk Carruthers was I want to say he was a sophomore at the time, linebacker, 16 total tackles, 2 interceptions, and a fumble recovery at the 1-yard line. That's a pretty good day, right?
Linebacker play. I like that.
Yeah. 16. By the way, our man Odell Higgins had 9 tackles, which led defensive lineman. Leroy Butler had 7 tackles and a pick. That's NFL Hall of Famer Leroy Butler to you guys. He had an interception on the first play of the game against Gino Torretta. And then they won the game 24-10. They won the game because of the defense, and the defense was so good because our man Kirk Carruthers, who wore number 45, it'd been cooler if he wore number 47, but he didn't. But he wore number 45, and he had 16 tackles, 2 picks, and a fumble recovery. I think he was like he must have been like the national defensive player of the week. I mean, that's an all-time performance. And then the next year, Marvin Jones came and showed everybody what an incredible linebacker really looked like. Kirk Carruthers was very, very good, though. I didn't mean to dismiss him. And that was an all-time great performance. You're the man, Kirk.
For me, it's going to be a make good. I think we'd gotten to themes a few weeks ago, and we went with the best Link Jarrett performance. But during that week, this happened, and I did not tip my cap to it. I'm going to use this platform to do it now. But Carson Pickett of Florida State women's soccer fame a few weeks ago became the first player with a limb difference to be featured in a U.S. national team for soccer. And there's a difference. I mean, she has an upper arm. She's got a humerus. So she's probably got a good sense of humor. But the radius and the ulna and the hand she doesn't have. But she actually got some action against Colombia for the U.S. women's national soccer team. She's a Nole. She deserves a round of applause for that one. So I'm making good on that one. So we're going to Kirk Carruthers for the 40 since we're getting close to football season, and we're going to make good with Carson Pickett, my nomination. Zaxby's, it's indescribably good. And I'm sure while you guys are over at warchant.com checking out the top 5 from the entire staff, you probably saw the column from Corey from this previous weekend. I thought it was really good, Corey. It was just enough rah-rah. It wasn't rah-rah-rah-rah. It was like rah-rah. It was just the right amount because I think, fairly unfair. I think there should be a little bit of trepidation, a little bit of anxiety. Like, listen, I get it, man. Florida State is a great brand. What Florida State has done, it's crazy to me that I'm sick of hearing about Clemson. I don't know why Clemson gets this more kind of, more respect than Florida State. We were being way too prisoner of the moment. I don't care about Clemson. I don't care about. They don't have to come with us. I don't want to be attached to their hip. I don't care. Want to come with us? Sure, fine, whatever. Package us together if that helps. But there's, there could be maybe a reality where we were to get left out of this super conference stuff. Maybe not. I don't think probable. If we have to go like with NHL or NFL designations, I would say doubtful that it happens. But your column though kind of brought me to Jesus, if you will, to a certain degree. I liked it very much, Corey. What sort of motivated you to write a column, and what did you take away from the data of said tweet?
Well, it was Michael Alford. Actually, Ira motivated me to write the column. He's like, "Hey, do you want to write a column on Michael Alford's tweet?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll do that." But most of my great ideas come from Ira. But the Alford tweet, if you guys don't know, it was a Forbes list of the top 25 most valuable programs, college football programs. I don't know their methodology. I don't know how they came up with these numbers necessarily, but it was the most valuable with numbers attached to it, like 101 million, 95 million, like what their value is. And they had the top 25. Florida State was 14th. The ones ahead of them are the ones you would imagine. Oregon, Notre Dame, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. But they were also ahead of, they were well ahead of Clemson, who finished 25th. They were also ahead of Washington, who's been rumored to the Big Ten. And, 11 other schools in the top 25, 110 other schools if you're talking about D1. So, again, I just thought, and the fact that Alford tweeted that with no comment other than eyeballs, like the emoji eyeballs that we all love so much, I just thought that was telling. It was him wanting to let Florida State fans know, like remind them, like, hey man, you're still Florida State. You still you're not just living on what Dion did. You're still one of the most valuable programs, most marketable programs in the country, even after these 4 years where nobody's happy with what this has looked like. Even with that, you're still quite marketable and quite attractive, and you're still making a lot of money. Now that money gap would obviously continue to widen with these new TV revenues and all the like. But I just thought that was something that right now Florida State fans need to be reminded of. You are still considered a big boy. You are a big boy, and you need to be at a table with other big boys. But I think the whole purpose of Alford was like, yeah, y'all might wonder why the Big Ten or why the SEC would want us. Well, here you go. We're more valuable than half the teams in the SEC, even with all that extra TV revenue they get. We're more valuable than half the teams in the Big Ten. We're close to Oregon, who has Nike money. So I think I thought the tweet was funny in its own little way, and then I was like, yeah, I'll write a column about that because, yeah, I do think Florida State fans need to be reminded that when this is all said and done, it just would make no sense financially or otherwise for these conferences to add other teams not named Florida State. It just wouldn't. There's no logical reason for it. They are going to add other teams. And when they do, Florida State has to be on the short list because of the money they still make. But, yeah, so that was the point of it.
Yeah, man. $96 million. We got Clemson at $77 million. Ole Miss, $84. Arkansas, $95. South Carolina, $95. Yeah, it was good. I liked it. And that passion from Corey was even more palpable, I felt, in the column. So check it out, everybody.
Well, hey, I wanted to bring up one other thing about that real quick, and then we'll
make way for Michael Langston's segment.
And then
that
we'll
was with
yeah.
Lyra and Tom on Sunday Smash, everybody. So
I wanted to. Andy Staples had an interesting story in The Athletic, which I'll admit I did not read, but he had a
good comments in the tweet. Good comments in the replies.
No, hold on a second. You might. Well, okay, here we go. Here's the context of the list he has. And I'm going to read the tweet exactly how it appears. If you subtract Big Ten teams, SEC teams, and Notre Dame from the equation, which schools from the ACC, Big 12, and Pac-12 do people watch? So he charted the ones with the most 1 million plus viewer games, like the most games that had at least 1 million viewers. And none of the games could be against SEC teams, Big Ten teams, or Notre Dame. So last year, Florida State got a huge number when they went to overtime with Notre Dame. That doesn't count. So
Are you
take
sure?
that away. Yeah. According to Andy Staples, it doesn't. So in that tweet, and this is in the last 5 years, Clemson leads the way with 34 games with over 1 million viewers. Florida State is second with 31. Washington's third with 28. Oregon fourth with 26. Miami 22. Washington State 21. There you go, Washington State. Oklahoma State, Utah 19. Louisville, Stanford 18. North Carolina 16. So Florida State has been viewed by 1 million people or more twice as many times as North Carolina has. And that doesn't take into account when they play Florida, or when they play LSU this year, or when they played Notre Dame. It doesn't take, because if you took those into account, obviously it's skyrocket even more.
I don't want to quibble over this, but I think when he says if you subtract the Big Ten teams with SEC teams, he's not counting them in this list. Like Clemson versus Alabama national title game, I'm thinking is going towards this.
No, because I read all the comments afterwards. This is right. No, he's like, no, I took, because he's like, because somebody was like, well, what about when, whoever, Clemson played Notre Dame? He goes, I didn't count it because that was Notre Dame. We're not counting games where Notre Dame or the SEC or the Big Ten appear. Because the point being, why would the Big Ten or SEC want to go after Florida State or Clemson or whoever if the only time they draw people is when they play another team from the Big Ten? Well, we already got that team from the Big Ten, so what do we need Florida State for? No, the point is Florida State draws when they play North Carolina. Florida State draws when they play NC State. Florida State draws, period. That's the point. Like Clemson and Florida State, people watch them play football. Even now, and this is the last 5 years. This is not over the last 20 years. It's the last 5 years. So again, you take the fact that Florida State is still 14th in the country in revenue for a college football program, and you take into account they're second in the country with those, regulations, stipulations for the way people view college football. They still get more $1 million viewership than anybody else in the country that's not in the SEC or Big Ten. They're just really, really attractive. And again, now imagine them with Big Ten or SEC money. They become right up to the top of the echelon. They go right up to the top of the food chain again, really, really quickly. It just seems like just look at it, man. It's an automatic. They make money, and people watch them. People care about Florida State. Nebraska is not on that. I guess Nebraska's in the Big Ten, so that doesn't count. But yeah, so that's. They get huge numbers, man. That Florida State LSU game is going to get a huge number.
Yeah.
It just is.
I do wonder. Something is going to have to happen before ACC. Not big. I'm not saying like where, all right, the conference is blowing up and blah, blah, blah. But there has to be some kind of development, like where we're hearing reports of a ACC team trying to backdoor deal other teams to break before we get to ACC kickoff, right? Or we're just going to walk an ACC kickoff in 10 days or whatever and just be like, yeah, everything's burning down around us, but we're insulated. We got this grant of rights till 2036. We're a stable franchise. We ain't going nowhere. ACC for life. Like something.
Yeah, it's going to be a crazy day and a half up there. I won't be able to go, sadly. I'll be recovering from my gallbladder surgery. But you'll be there, and you better get us some great sound bites, buddy.
I'm just going to crash.
You understand?
I'm just going to crash every interview that Jim Phillips is doing with any entity and just be like, when are you going to let us out of the GOR, Jim? Let us out.
Please. How much will it take? Don't tell us $380 million.
When you go,
I had one last question. I'm going to leave you with this. Okay. I asked Ira this. He balked at it a little bit, but I'm going to ask you, and I'll probably bring it up again on Seminole Headlines. If you were Michael Offord right now, because how much money did they raise to start the football facility?
60,
somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 million.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
With the current landscape of college football, the way it is right now, and the fact that you are hoping to be an enormous free agent, and you have to, maybe you feel like you have to prove to those two power conferences that they need to think about Florida State again. Because if you don't get into the SEC or Big Ten, you're done. You're done being relevant in college football. You're done.
Cincinnati's great. Cincinnati's a power. We'll be.
Come on, man. They're not winning a national championship.
I got you. Yeah,
but
no, you're right.
You're done. You're done being relevant if you don't get into one of those two major conferences. However, it ends up shaking out in the next decade. You have to be in one of the two, whatever they call themselves at that point. Wouldn't it to be the most attractive you can be at this moment in time? in the history of this sport. Would you not be better served taking that $60 million and spending it on next 2 years of incredible football players?
Yeah,
Because the point being,
if this team is still not winning football games in 2 years, and that college football playoff contract is coming up, and then everybody's going to start breaking off in these super conferences, yeah, that would be scary. You're talking about like 5-6 consecutive seasons of just subpar football.
right?
That's scary.
Right. You look, man. 2013 is still not that far in the rearview mirror, but every day it's farther. Yeah. And my point being, it won't matter if you don't get into the SEC or Big Ten, and I still think it's going to happen. Florida State will have a table somewhere. They'll have a seat at one of these tables when the dust settles. But you have to, that's the only thing that matters right now. That is literally the only thing that matters. And if you don't get into one of those conferences, you can have Graceland beside your practice field. You can have the Biltmore House. It's not going to matter. You're not going to matter. So right now, to me, in the short term, money has to be on, to me, and I know I'm probably speaking, I'm in the minority. Though that kind of money, if you instead funneled it to player acquisition or player retention or the transfer portal and got yourself a team full of NFL players, future NFL players, that to me is more important than in 2025 having a football-only facility. Because I don't think those things matter anymore. I just don't think they're going to matter anymore. As long as NIL is this, kids are going to go where the money is. They're not going to care that they get a chocolate fountain or a skateboard ramp for free. They want money. And I just think if you want to make sure that you need to remind people what Florida State is. You have to remind people what Florida State is. I don't know that a 2-year project or a year-and-a-half project to build a football-only facility does that as much as getting yourself a really, really, really good football team.
I know, but I feel like that's like your GPA. Like if you want to get accepted to, like you still need a good GPA. You can have a great standardized test score, but like if you don't have a good GPA, like are you still getting accepted? Like you need one of these facilities. And
I mean, really, you think if you offer a kid $800,000?
No, I'm talking about like for everybody to take you seriously. Like so, the SEC and the Big Ten they're going to know that all the money that you had earmarked for this facility is now gone to like So now what are you going to do, Florida? So now you spent all this money on these two teams that won you 10 games and one that won you 11, but you still didn't make the 14 playoff.
Well, that's who can say that for sure. Maybe you did, and maybe when you start winning more games, more money starts getting funneled back into the program from the donors and the boosters. Just saying, man, something to think about.
You're not wrong.
I don't think that a football-only facility in 2022 means jack of anything, means much of anything. I just don't. You've got to get football players here. Everybody has a football facility.
But we don't, though. That's the thing. We don't have a football facility.
I don't because I don't think they matter anymore. I think they went from very important to not important at all in the matter of what's it been, 6 months? What's Jackson State's football facility look like? Bet it's not great. They got the best damn player in the country. So it doesn't matter that much. And I feel like I get it. They're going to do it. It's something you have to have. But I think it's a conversation where some donors will be like, you'd have to tell all the donors that already donated, hey, would you rather go get this 5-star quarterback or get this thing built? And it's their money, and you can't just tell them you're going to spend it on one thing and then back out and say, oh, never mind. We got a guard. But yeah, I do. I think that we have to change the way we view stuff like this, and especially in the short term, because you got to make sure you're there. You got to make sure that you remind people what Florida State can be, and you're not just limping along to 7 or 8 wins a year. If you can get there, you go get yourself a Hugh Freeze type team, buddy. I don't care how many gas masks they wear. I don't care. Go get them. I don't care. You've got to get good players on this football team. And I think that in the short term, and again, like I said, I think if you win in the short term, then more money starts coming to the program. You restart the never-ending quest for a football-only facility. And if you get in the SEC or the Big Ten and you start making $110 million a year, that football facility will be built in 4 days. Like, it won't take any time at all to get that thing built. You have to make sure by any means necessary, whatever you view that way to be, maybe it is having a football-only facility. Maybe that makes you more enticing to those two conferences. But you have to make yourself as enticing and as attractive and appealing as possible here in these next few years to make sure you are part of the train moving forward. Do you see how I switched it up, Aslan? I've been using boats and tankers for a week and a half. Now I'm using trains.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, Corey.
I think outside the box, Aslan.
You do.
I think outside the box. Imagine what kind of football team you could get for $60 million for 1 year.
I know, but you would need it for at least like 2 years, though, right? I mean, because you can't.
Well, right, sure. And look,
and they can't take the moral high road on us, right? Like SEC teams can't be like, well, the only reason you guys have been good the last few years is because you used all your football-only facility money to buy your roster. They can't pull that on us, right? Like, whoa, sorry, we're playing your game
Alabama.
Better than you. Sorry,
Alabama. That where do you use your money? You got the best coach in the country, and he's got a gazillion coaches underneath him. Florida State doesn't have that option, so they spent their money instead of on 45 quality control assistants on a starting 22. It's pretty darn good. Just get in that portal, baby. Just get in that portal and start making offers they can't say no to. You watched The Godfather this weekend.
I did.
An offer they can't refuse.
Watch all the Godfathers. I even watched 3, which I should not have done. But yeah, I watched 1 and 2 finally. Things I figured I had to do before I turned 40 here. So probably going to watch that OJ doc now as I continue my quarantine.
That OJ doc, yeah, that's good stuff. And see if they say spatter or splatter.
Okay. Oh, well. What happened to our sport, Corey? What happened to the sport, man?
I'm with you. There was somebody, Barrett Saley or Saley, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Yeah. He had this just goofy-ass tweet about things they said were going to ruin college football, or things that were supposed to ruin college football. And it was like the forward pass, 85 limit scholarships, the no-huddle offense, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, college football will be just fine. And it's like, come on, dude. Are you really comparing the forward pass to cutting out half the country? Like it's 2 power conferences. Like all
Fox
the schools could throw the forward pass.
Yeah, is that what we call the Big Ten, the SEC? They should call them like the ESPN football conference and the Fox football conference.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
So forgive me if I understand why people are a little bit concerned, number one, about the portal, number two, about NIL. But the biggest concern.
Sorry to ruin you on a heater here, but they did introduce some new rules about the transfer portal. So there would be like a 45-day window, I think, after the championship weekend. I think either after the championship weekend of football or maybe after the actual championship game, there'll be a 45-day window, and then I think they'll have one like in the spring, like a 10-day window for football. So like there won't be this huge kind of,
But you can still go anywhere you want.
Yes, but if you're not within those windows, you have to sit out a whole year.
Okay, right.
But anyway, sorry, continue on.
Speed it up. It's like NBA free agency. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you can't act like people. It's ridiculous for people to be worried about the future of the sport when you're talking about these seismic shifts. Throwing a forward pass was not a seismic shift. Everybody got to do it. Everybody got limited to 85 scholarships. It's not like the SEC got 120 and everybody else got 70. That's what is happening right now. It's the inequality of it that is going to ruin the sport and marginalize all these other teams and all these other schools that really do care about the sport. They're being completely marginalized. No huddle offenses didn't do that. It was just a dumb, like this, people really are. It's not paranoia and it's not Chicken Little to wonder about the future of the sport right now. Now, again, like I said, I was excited when USC and UCLA moved. That kind of excited me because it got us closer to these super conferences, which feel like an inevitability. But at the same time, it doesn't mean I'm happy about what's happened here, man. I'm just not. The 80s and 90s, and maybe it's because I grew up a Florida State fan and those were great times and those were great teams. But that was a better sport than this. Much, much better. And I feel like something's been lost. And, it's a new world order. We gotta just grin and bear it and go along with it. And I am. And I think it can be a great sport again. We got to make college football great again, Aslan. We got to. It ain't there right now. And, we talk about NIL and like Florida State just to compete. I was just talking 8 minutes ago about maybe the best way for Florida State to compete on a elite scale is to pay $30 million to a football team. I mean, that's where we are right now. Because Alabama can do it. A&M's certainly doing it. That's what you're up against. Plus all the money they get to spend on everything else that you don't have. So in Florida State's a great program in a bit of a dip, clearly, but a great program. And you might have to go to some crazy shenanigans like that just to compete with the Georgias and Ohio States of the world, or maybe not. Who knows? I'm just rambling. It's been too long a show, Aslan.
It has been. I didn't want to mention. Listen to the Rosillo
Don't even
show.
mention
it. You're right. All right.
Don't even mention it. I got to go.
Warchant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. Warchant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WARCHANT30. That's WARCHANT30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WARCHANT30. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.